Robert Knight is our guest here today on Crosstalk. He is author of the book Radical Rulers, the White House Elites Who Are Pushing America Toward Socialism. And folks, we have just scratched the surface at best here on these issues today. Robert was with us back a few months ago as well, dealing with this issue. But Bob, those who'd like to obtain a copy of your book, what direction can you give our listeners?
Well, there are a couple ways to do it. I guess the easiest way to go to the website radicalrulers.com. And there you could read some excerpts and actually see some of the video that we're going to be broadcasting on the Coral Ridge Hour. And you can order the book and the complete video, or just the book or just the video, whatever you want to do. That would be radicalrulers.com. And as far as calling to order the book or video, 800-98-TRUTH. That's 800-988-7884, but it's probably easy to remember, 800-98-TRUTH.
And folks, you'll learn about folk like Chai Feldblum, Equal Employment Opportunity Commission nominee. We spoke extensively about her the last time Bob was with us. Cass Sunstein, the regulatory czar. Kevin Jennings, the Safe Schools czar. And just a number of individuals that are presented in the book and the materials. Lines are packed here today, 800-733-9829. Let's go to the lines. We have calling from Mitchell, South Dakota. Tom is on the air. Go ahead, Tom.
Yeah, I'm frustrated in two areas. Number one, or just one area actually, but where is our help? Where is the political resistance to what Obama is saying? You never hear about it on the news. I mean, is everybody asleep over there? I mean, you guys are on top of it, but isn't there anybody else? That's one. And then number two, help me with this one. If they pass the law that says that equal time, doesn't that work in our favor? Because now wouldn't we be able to force equal time on NBC, ABC, and public radio? And I'll get off and listen.
Thank you, Tom.
To address his first point, there is a resistance. In fact, a lot of it's outside Washington in the Tea Parties, and I don't think the Tea Parties are a temporary movement. I think they represent a long-term struggle to recapture what made America great, which is less government, the free enterprise system, our traditional values. This is bigger than 1994 when the Republicans captured the House in 94 and then the Senate in 96. That was a political revolution that didn't last because the Republicans abused it. This time around, people are saying, my goodness, this runs very deep. It goes right to the spiritual. What kind of country are we leaving our children and grandchildren? There are people who have never been activists before, who weren't activists even back in 94, who are now getting off the sidelines and getting busy. So I think the Tea Parties are huge, and they're being ridiculed by the media every day and by the liberals in charge because they fear them. And there are some people in Congress who are putting up a resistance. These votes have been fairly close on these major things. I mean, health care just squeaked by. And they did it with all sorts of parliamentary tricks. They couldn't do a straight up and down vote. They did a reconciliation. I mean, they played
we
games.
Deem it passed. we just deem that it's passed.
Yeah, they were going to just deem it passed, but they got caught doing that, so they tried other tricks and they got it through. But there are a number of people dedicated to actual repeal. I mean, a lot of candidates are running on repeal, not reshaping it, not trimming it, not slowing it down, but actually repealing it. And I think that's very important. That you need to know people are dedicated to that.
Yeah, and on that healthcare issue, for instance, Joseph Farah was on with us just a week ago and telling us about the drive to get congressional signatories on to repeal Obamacare. And they have had just numerous legislators. They have over half of what's needed thus far. WorldNetDaily.com has a story. And just one other website here, folks, dealing with these broadcast-related issues. National Religious Broadcasters has established a website called freedomtobroadcast.com. It keeps you updated on issues pertaining to the fairness doctrine, indecency standards, this localism and media ownership, the performance tax, even ENDA, the Employment Non-Discrimination Act, and how it will impact Christian broadcasters. So check out that site, freedomtobroadcast.com. You'll get legislative information there, including legislation that will enhance Christian broadcasting and protect it. That information there as well.
I don't want to give you too much information, but I'm also a senior fellow for the American Civil Rights Union. And ACRU, that's the good twin. The evil twin's ACLU. we defend the Boy Scouts, they attack them. That sort of thing.
R stand for right and L for left?
Yeah, well, somebody's got to take these people on, and ACRU is doing it. And ACRU has a Freedom to Listen campaign that people can click on at theacru.org. And we encourage talk show hosts like you to go ahead and sign up. There's a way broadcasters can enlist in it, and we're encouraging people to get public officials to sign the Freedom to Listen pledge. And that would be public office holders would pledge not to introduce anything like the Fairness Doctrine that would strangle our freedom to listen.
Give us that site. Give us that site one more time.
That's theacru.org.
The letters theacru.org.
Yeah, and this is off topic, but it's fascinating. We also have a campaign about recalling Congress. Recallcongress.org. We found out in investigating the law that 11 states have provisions that could mean recalling U.S. congressmen and senators in off-election years. So people are pursuing recalls in New Jersey and now in North Dakota. And I think it's very interesting because a lot of people feel we can't get at these folks. You get elected to the Senate, and they're untouchable for 6 years, can do anything they want. Maybe not. Maybe with the petition process and recall, we can hold them more accountable.
Let's move to Idaho here. And Jeff, you're on the air. Go ahead.
Well, hi. I just had a quick comment. I was reading an article in MSN, and it was talking about I believe in Missouri, they just passed an anti-discrimination against gays. And my question, I guess, is what you guys think about that as violating our freedom of religion as Christians and what we believe is an abomination.
Well, all right, let me put it clearly. I think if the gay rights people succeed in all their goals, we'll have the criminalization of Christianity. It's that serious. There's nothing else within our borders that threatens our freedoms of speech, religion, and association, like the whole idea of replacing traditional civil rights categories with sexual orientation, or at least adding it, because a lot of people didn't see this coming. They thought, well, everybody's got a sexual orientation. Some people are straight, some people are gay. Who's it going to hurt? And can't we all be equal and get along? Well, no, because when you put sexual orientation into the law, you are putting a mighty weapon in the hands of people who want to recast traditional morality as a form of bigotry, just like racism, and then bring penalties against them. That's happening in Canada. It's happening in Great Britain. It's starting to happen in the United States. And, what we ought to do is work for repeal of laws that add sexual orientation, because sexual behavior has a moral component, unlike skin color. It's a total hijacking of the moral capital of the black civil rights movement, and it's being put to a wrong purpose, which is to incentivize homosexuality and punish anybody who disagrees. So I'm glad you asked that question.
Thanks for the call. Next to the state of Wisconsin, and Arlen is online. Go ahead, Arlen.
Hi, thanks. I'm a first-time caller and first-time listener, actually. So, I was wondering about, you were talking about regulations for the FCC on the Internet and such and what you thought about them, and you mentioned that you had feared them. And I guess what I've been hearing a lot about is a lot of fear of laws being put into place and that sort of thing. And I don't know, how Christian the viewpoint of the station is. Like I said, it's my first time to call. But I think the first thing we need to do, especially as Christians and Americans, is to trust God first and foremost about what is happening in the government, and not to not take a stand on it, but to realize, the enemy isn't necessarily the left, right? But, as far as regulations go for the radio stations and that sort of thing, just like that other caller had said, if fair airtime means that a Christian viewpoint would be necessary on other channels and that sort of thing. So I would like to hear what you have to say about that.
Okay, thanks. And Bob, it's not necessarily a Christian viewpoint that we heard. Maybe it will be a religious viewpoint that is heard.
Well, yeah, and I'm glad she asked this question, because your other caller had two questions for me and I didn't get to the second, and she's reiterated it, which is, hey, why don't we have equal time provisions? Why don't we let the FCC ensure that there are many points of view? Well, because, number one, I don't trust the government. In the wrong hands, they could heavily weight it one way or the other. It would cause enormous regulations and a governing body to oversee people, think of the explosion in federal bureaucrats who would be needed to monitor what's said on every radio station in America. There are several thousand of them. I think it's a recipe for disaster. If we truly believe in free speech, we should truly have diversity. We should have stations that have just a Christian viewpoint if that's what the owners of the station want. If atheists want to put up a radio station, hey, they're free to do so. Mm-hmm. It just so happens that a lot of Americans listen to Christian and conservative talk radio because they can't get these viewpoints and information anywhere else because liberals control the rest of the media.
And what you stated earlier, Bob, too, on this whole matter is when we did have the fairness doctrine, there was a tremendous chilling effect on the freedom of speech and on the free exercise of religion as expressed over the airwaves.
Yeah, there was, because the station managers rightly feared being put under a microscope and what kind of records they'd be keeping and everything else. You might as well just do without it. So, let's not fix what's not broken. Right now, talk radio is thriving. People are hearing what they want to hear. The liberals tried to start Air America, and they didn't get the listeners because the listeners who would like that kind of programming already get it on CNN, MSNBC, the three major networks, every major newspaper, news magazines. They get it all over the place. So it wasn't novel. It wasn't interesting. It was just the same old, same old. So I think we need less government, not more government. But the one exception to that is they should enforce the obscenity laws. This is not protected speech, and they should have cleaned up the Internet long ago. And I think they have not done their duty. They've not upheld the law. And if you look at federal prosecutions of hardcore obscenity, they win virtually every case because it's not that difficult to define, and it's not protected speech. It has nothing to do with ideas. In fact, pornography hurts ideas because it messes up your mind. You can't think squarely. Think of a guy looking at porn and then trying to do a math problem at the same time. It just doesn't work.
Our phone number to Crosstalk, 800-733-9829, 800-733-9829. Next to New London, and Rick, you're on the air.
Oh, thank you. I'd like to comment on the court case with the NRA and corporate speech, and then I have another comment about Mrs. Kagan. Now, since the Supreme Court has ruled in favor of corporate speech, I noticed that Lautenberg and Joe Lieberman tried to go around that and put another bill in to try to silence that law. And Mrs. Kagan, personally, she says that she does not care for the First Amendment on free speech, and that was one of her comments.
Well, it is, and you mentioned the NRA.
Right.
I'm an NRA member, and I'm appalled at what the NRA did on this. You're talking about the Disclose Act, which is a bill put in by the Democrats to overturn what the Supreme Court did in freeing us from the McCain-Feingold campaign contribution restrictions just before an election. They really strangled free speech when they put that law on the books. The court saw it as unconstitutional, overturned it, and now the Democrats are trying to bring it back. The NRA got a carve-out and stopped opposing the bill.
We got a break, folks. We'll be back in 1 minute.
For the Worldview Weekend Minute, I'm Brandon House. Where are we headed? Lutheran scholar Friedrich Bayer suggests to a phase of Western or world civilization that is innately religious but hostile to Christianity, or worse, a dominant but false church that brings all its forces to bear against the truth of God's Word. As long ago as 1898, Abraham Kuyper warned in the Stone Lectures at Princeton. He said, "Do not forget that the fundamental contrast has always been, is still, and always will be until the end Christianity and paganism, the idols and the living God." Many churches, unfortunately, my friends, are now embracing the idolatry of paganism. Vance Havner said, "The devil's not fighting religion. He's too smart for that. He's producing a counterfeit Christianity so much like the real one that good Christians are afraid to speak out against it." Are you speaking out against the apostate churches in your community? Are you standing up for biblical truth in the age of apostasy? For more information, my website's worldviewweekend.com.